turn up a bit.
A little bit.
That's
Is there anything else you wanted us to say, or just introduce really? So after we introduce ourselves, should I introduce Dr. Maybe
yeah, so it's gonna go like, welcome to the first ever Asian Heritage Celebration. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to Lisa, Reset Campus for organizing this. Yeah. If you have the flyer, the feedback form is here, so make sure you like scan it careful,
Yeah, okay.
And then we like to have like a list of what do you call them?
We have an agenda.
Yeah.
Agenda sounds kind of itinerary. Itinerary, that's the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, an itinerary.
Packed with information, fun,
Yes.
and entertainment for you. So sit back, enjoy, and relax.
Cool.
And first on the list we have the keynote speech by Dr.
Dr. Okay, I got it. Awesome. Decent. Okay. Hello, everybody. Shmai. My name is Jamil.
Hi, my name is Tumi. Ni hao. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for coming to the first ever Asian Heritage Celebration hosted by Swansea University. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Teresa, for putting this together. Thank you, RESEC members. Thank you all for just, gracing us with your presence today. We have a lot of things packed for you. We have lots of information, lots of knowledge. We also have entertainment. So sit back, enjoy, and relax.
And also, guys, don't forget towards the end to scan our QR code for feedback about the event, basically about what you like and what you think could be better done for next year. So, other than that, we have got a wonderful speech by Dr. Mengui Tu, who's going to be talking about her speech on what it means to be around Asian heritage. So, whenever you're ready, Doc.
Okay. I just don't feel like I'm giving a lecture on Wednesday afternoon.
Anyone here you like?
Okay.
Yeah.
Shall I? Okay.
Stand up to you and that's for the recording.
Hello.
Just keep it on the table, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Teresa promised it's a casual event. And she said you just need to say a few words. And it is assumed that because I'm sort of Asian, I know clever things to say about. Hello? Hello? Okay. Okay. Have you all clocked in your student cards? So it is assumed that I have clever things to say about Asian heritage and being Asian in Britain. So first, let me just introduce a little bit about myself. My name is Mengwei Tu. So it's a sort of typical Chinese-sounding name, I would guess. And I joined Swansea about 2.5 years ago. I was born and raised in China. Is the background music too?
Just trying to entertain you.
Yes, just trying to be casual. Okay, so I was born and raised in China. I came to the UK as an international student for my postgraduate degree. And I did my master's and my PhD here. And then I went back to China after I finished my PhD. And I started working in China for 5 years before coming back to the UK and joined Swansea in sociology department. So I'm a sociologist. And my research is about migration. So it's kind of also similar to my daily job. I look at Chinese migration, I look at international student experience, I look at all the wonderful things and awful things that happen to international students as well as high-skilled migrants who's trying to remain in the host country after their education. What else was Teresa asking me to say? Okay, so my experience of being an Asian, or rather, I would say a Chinese really in the UK, because Asian is such a difficult to define term because I would say, because we have like, we say people from Africa, we say people from America, but I would really say Asian is if you define it as a continent, would contain most countries, would contain the most diversity of cultures because Asians simply make up the largest proportion of population in the world because it has China, India being the two most largest country in population number. So Asian really is a diverse term. So my experience as Chinese in the UK is always entangled with experience being an immigrant and to some extent being a female. And the beautiful things, the beautiful achievement I would say about being a Chinese in the UK is to witness the kind of visible and sometimes invisible achievement made by the ethnic minorities in the UK. Because if you go to London, you go to Chinatown. Chinatown is such a central place. I don't know if, well, I guess most of you have been to London's Chinatown. You went there for the restaurant, you went there for the interesting little shops, and that's something to be celebrated about because it's even like a to-go place, a tourist attraction. But if you know the history of Chinatown, it's a history of racism and discrimination. People have to live together, for migrants especially, have to live together in an enclave because they are denied opportunities in the mainstream job market. They're denied a welcoming residence opportunity in other areas. So migrants have to be pushed around and find their ground somewhere in a ghetto. Last month, earlier this month, I was in New York. So I went to Chinatown in New York. Again, I don't know how many of you have been there, but it was huge. I would say it's 5 times bigger than the Chinatown in London. It's huge. You can literally live your whole life there without having to go out of the Chinatown. It has furniture shops, all the seafood wholesale shops and everything, education institutions. So I would say that the Chinese diaspora has made China, Chinese culture, Chinese identity so visible in major Western countries. And I'm always in awe of what the previous generations has made. Last October, I was in Trinidad and Tobago, and even there in ports of Spain, there was a Chinatown in the city center. So they're everywhere. Well, Chinese are everywhere. So that's what I found most amazing about seeing what the previous generations has left, because they didn't come as international students. They came as, if you think about the history in the UK, the Chinese migration history to the UK started in the late 20th century, in 1900-ish. People came, first wave of Chinese people came as seamen. And some historians sum up different waves of Chinese migration to the UK as salt, soap, and soil. So salt refers to the taste of the sea. So the first wave of people who came as seamen. And soap refers to, later on, the Chinese laundry shops, which is in the later part of, in sort of 1930s and 40s. And soil refers to, after 1960s, 70s, the Chinese restaurants and takeaways, catering business. So these are kind of sums up the Chinese business that people took as livelihood in the past more than 100 years. And now it's a completely different profile. You cannot simply sum up Chinese business as the catering business or laundry business, far behind in history. But now we're celebrating the diversity of different people who come in with different capitals, people who come with different skills. and especially people who come as students who are making a contribution to the intellectual life in UK universities. So this is, again, worth celebrating as me as an academic who research migration, and also me as an individual who are benefiting from the previous Chinese migrants' achievement. So yeah, I would like to just finish my little talk here. Later on, if we have some question answer sessions, we'll be really happy to have a more open conversation with everybody. But before I go, I just want to say I'm really happy to see the diversity of faces sitting down there. And some people may count as Asian, some may not, but we're all very interested in learning more about Asian heritage and what it means to everybody. So this is really a good start.
Well, that was a wonderful talk by Dr. Tu, especially around what it meant for her to be Chinese and what it meant to be a lecturer here at Swansea University, and as well as opened my eyes personally to what it means to have Asian heritage, and also what it means to have that Asian heritage, and especially with the growth of diversity that the doctor was talking about. It's great to see that Swansea University is a very diverse university, and that was a very wonderful talk. And yeah, moving on, we've got our talk by, we've got Dawn coming up next with a speech about Asian heritage.
And also to introduce the panelists, we're going to have the panel discussion now, where they will be enlightening us about, what it means to be Asian, their experiences, and, just giving us the knowledge they have. Can we all welcome Dawn, please?
So I think I'm mainly sort of just opening this panel discussion, but I'll give a brief sort of introduction to myself. Oh, okay, I'll start again. So I'm just here to sort of open this panel discussion, but I'll start with a little, I guess, a brief sort of anecdote about myself. So my name's Dawn. I'm a lecturer here in Politics and International Relations, and I'm also the School of Social Sciences EDIB lead. And just a little bit of, I guess, background about myself. So I'm originally from Australia. I was born in Australia, but I'm also someone of mixed heritage. So my mum is Chinese, my dad is English. I speak Mandarin. It was probably my first language, even though I've never lived in China. So it's one of those things that this is something that's very close to me, and I think it's also very important to hear the sort of different stories and narratives that come from that. And I think it's also very important to embrace the diversity that is here today. So I'm very proud to be here, sort of both personally and professionally. And just in terms of this panel, thank you, Teresa, for organising all of this. We did actually have 2 podcasts yesterday, which were super interesting. So I do encourage you, when they're sort of published, to have a listen to those, because we had some great discussions on there. But today, I think this is a sort of great space to kind of reflect, celebrate, and sort of challenge some of those views. And as I was saying before, we're here to hear from a brilliant sort of group of speakers and all these different voices today. And I want to sort of talk about how, what sort of Asian heritage means to each of them, and also how it might sort of shape, sometimes limit, or even challenge sort of our experiences. And I hope that this sort of is the start of a way of sort of amplifying and honouring sort of Asian voices in meaningful ways. So just to get started, I might sort of get each sort of speaker just to briefly sort of introduce themselves, if you want to sort of talk a little bit about your Asian heritage and maybe how that shapes who you are today and why it might bring you pride. So we might start with from the end.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. Can I ask you how long do you want to speak? Because
A a few minutes, just a brief sort of background and I guess what Asian heritage
It's
means to you personally.
always cautiously ask the lecturers how many minutes you want to talk, because some lecturers will allow you to half a second, some lecturers allow you to speak to 10 minutes, because as long as their clock ticks, they'll be very happy. Anyway, thank you for having me, and thank you very much for here. My name is Mahbub Pasha. I'm an external relation manager in Swansea University. I'm also a member of the University Council, which is the council which manages the whole university operation and governance of the university. I'm originally from South Asia and grew up in the family where mother speaks different language, father speaks different language, and the land you born, that land speaks different language. So you grew up with the three language. Your identity is already been known to three different ways. That's what me. I think you want us to stop there, and then you could.
I guess a little bit what it means to you. Like, what does Asian heritage mean to you?
For me, last 12 years, I'm more Asian than Welsh heritage. I belong to here, so that's what my identity. Yes, I'm a people of color person, but my belonging is I'm part and parcel of this community. That is me. It is always difficult. 14 years ago, if you come to the campus, we will not even have a 0.2% of staff on this campus would be color people. If you walk on this mall, you can clearly identify either me from the development office jumping out, or maybe Chantal Patel from the legal department jumping out. So we are the two people walking around the campus. Now, you walk on the campus, completely changed. Yeah. Back in 2008, we had only 220 Chinese students on campus. It became 3,000 Chinese students in 2017, and today we have 1,000 students. So that speaks the volume of change happening in the campus.
Thank you very much. You just move across it, might be easier.
Hi everyone, I'm Shaz Abdeen. My full name is Shazneen, but I feel like as if my head teacher's telling me off if I mention my full name, so I like to be known as Shaz. I'm born and brought up in Swansea. My parents are from Bangladesh. There's a bit of history around the formation of Bangladesh, which really brings in my heritage, but just to say a little bit about myself, I work at the university as the equality lead for race in particular. I'm based in the HR department. I focus around the staff issues, but I also work alongside Teresa and the team to understand the student perspective of the equality issues across campus. I've worked for local government for about 18 years of my life, and I came into the university after COVID. I worked in between COVID time with the health board for 2 years, looking at research around why ethnic minorities were impacted severely with the COVID virus. So when I came into the university, it was quite interesting to see, because I didn't study in this university. I studied in the, it was known as the the Institute, Mount Pleasant Institute. It's now the Trinity St. David's. But yeah, so I studied in the other university. So I actually had the opportunity to come and work here. So I took the opportunity. And it's been a great 2-year experience here. I've been looking at the race element for the university, and we've just submitted a race equality charter application which would get the university an equality standard. I belong to a large Bangladeshi community in Swansea. Swansea makes up of ethnic minorities. Significantly, there's a larger proportion of Bangladeshis than Chinese and Pakistani community members, and then obviously the other Asian categories are smaller in group. My father came to the UK at the age of 9. He studied in schools here, and then he started early working. I think he was about 14 or 15 he started working, and so he didn't get to complete his education. However, his motto was that if he ever has children, his children will be educated, his children will do well in school, and further on a lot better than him, or the opportunities for his children would be far better than what he had. Got married to my mother, my mum came to the UK, my mum was of same belief, education was paramount. So our family household was focused around having education. I'm one of 7, and we all are in different fields of work, career, education-wise. And they gave importance around our culture, our heritage, our faith, education as well. So not only were we pushed to study in the schools, but we also did the extracurricular activities. So for example, we had to attend the local mosque to learn how to read the Quran, which is part of our faith. We also went to the Saturday school, which taught us how to speak our native language, which was Bangla. And also we were exposed into the community where our friends were Pakistanis and from Indian community. And so we also got to learn the language Hindi and Urdu. So I became quite fluent in those two languages as well. And this is kind of connected to our Bangladesh pre-partition days when India, Pakistan and Bangladesh were together. And Urdu was the main language. It wasn't until 1952 that the movement of language took place, and then Bangladesh had their own language, so Bangla became separate as an identified language. And we now mark that day, 21st of February, as their mother language day. And then Bangladesh became independent from Pakistan in about 1971 March, so then we had our own state. So that's why that heritage part is very important. And when we were growing up, our parents ensured that our culture, our heritage, all that we maintained. The best part of my journey is being born on an estate in Swansea in Town Hill. Although it was known as the most racist, most difficult, the toughest estate in Swansea, we still hold some beautiful memories from there. And we did move into central Swansea, but then if I'd remembered all the negative things that I experienced in my childhood, I don't think I would have ever grown. But what I did was I started working for the Racial Equality Council, and through that then I had the opportunity to work with the most deprived communities across Swansea. So they were Town Hill, Mayhill, Clays, Kaimar, Morriston and Bonnie Mine, and that really educated me that it's just perception. You have to go into those communities, understand the issues that those communities face in order to grow that love for them. And so whilst the perception was you go in there, you're going to be murdered the next day, I worked in Bonnie Mine for 7 years and I didn't encounter one day of racist incident. I then went on to work for Ely Caira in Cardiff, again well known as a very racist area. I didn't encounter any problems there. So that instilled that you have to have those lived experiences to really share your positive experiences. So I've really maintained that, and I'm going to leave it at that, just to say that until you live those experiences, you will never know what life is about.
So, hi, I'm Melody Lin. I'm your current Women's Officer, and I'm also going to be your upcoming Welfare Officer in Student Union. And I'm also a young activist from Hong Kong and active on pro-democracy movement, especially Hong Kong-China area and gender equality, and also some like migrant rights and other like relevant topics. So a little more background about me. I feel like rather than Asian heritage, Hong Konger is the identity most really representing myself, because like Hong Kong is the place where I born in and where I grow up and educate in. So more background is like 5 years ago, we have a pro-democracy and pro-independence movement, social movement in Hong Kong. And I was one of the protesters by that time, and I was 16. And it was peaceful at first until like the police, they used inappropriate force, and then they defined us as riots. And then they set up national security law to highly restrict our freedom of speech and publish. I didn't decide to move at the first place because I feel like I have the responsibility to stay as long as I can, because I know the freedom is gonna no longer exist in Hong Kong. So I choose a journalist degree in Hong Kong, but then there's two biggest media outlets shut down, and my professor told us that like, I know you're all journalist students, but Hong Kong will no longer have real journalists. So you have to think about how to use your technique, how to use your skills to apply in your society. But I can't really accept it, because like obviously I'm young, and I'm also like, apart from a journalist student, I'm also a political like counselor assistant, and it's really like mentally damaged for me at the age of like 18. So I decided to come here, because I know only living in a freedom, like country with freedom, I have the space to tell my story, to tell the story that no longer can tell in my country. And UK was used to be the colony of Hong Kong. We were part of UK for 100 years, so I'm a newcomer to the land, but I never feel I'm a newcomer to United Kingdom. I feel like I'm a big part of it, but obviously Hong Konger, we moved here because we escaped from the political oppression, but our right is not certainly ensured in this country. So as a young Hong Konger, as an activist, I have the responsibility to represent my people and speak up for my community. Yeah.
I'm Kai, and I have been on RISAC this is the 4th year, and yeah, I've just loved the opportunity to work with Teresa and RISAC and all like-minded students who are concerned about race equality and trying to improve the university for other people, because in the end that's what we want to do. And it's like Shaz said, like it is in the very nature of Asian heritage, I think, especially migrants, that feeling of wanting a better future, that's something that we all feel and believe in, and that's definitely what it was like for I wouldn't even say ancestors, my grandfather. He moved from China to Malaysia, and he supported his entire family with a sundry store, and up till the point before he passed, he was still doing it. And my mother talks fondly of him, and I've seen him. He's a wonderful man. And I feel like it's stories like that, and that really exemplify that resilience and that hope for the future, which is honestly so important, because because identity is not something I think is guaranteed, and a lot of times my mother, she loves telling me the story about having Chinese as a language in Malaysia, because I've got to say, I'm from Malaysia, and I'm ethnically Chinese, and my identity has always been very firmly Malaysian Chinese. I moved to Hong Kong as well at some point, but I feel like that's kind of like a other segue about identity. But my mother would always cling on to that, that belief in that identity, that you are Malaysian Chinese. This is a very specific identity that you have because of the history of, in Malaysia, they didn't used to have Chinese schools. Chinese children were always just kind of taught English and Malay, and that was it. And the right to speak Chinese and the right to teach it formally in a school was not recognized until, I think, maybe, I wasn't sure if it was my mother's time, but it's quite recent, because that's just a few decades ago. And the fact that I was able to learn Chinese, to speak Chinese in Malaysia, in a school, be with my Chinese peers, that was in itself like a recognition of Chinese migrants in Malaysia. And that is important. That's what I have to remember, that people in the past, they came to Malaysia, and that's probably the same for every migrant. They went to a different place, gave up their own lives for the hope of a new one. And despite everything that they would endure, lack of rights, people kind of just poking fun at them, not understanding them, discrimination, they still persist. They still will persevere because of that hope. And I think that is what Asian heritage is for me, resilience and that hope for a better future. No matter how bad things can get, it can get better, and we are fighting for it.
Yep, all right. So my name is Wei Zhang. I grew up in China. I left China when I was 17. Then moved to Australia. I've been in Sydney for like 11 years. I got all my degrees there. And then moved to Adelaide for my PhD. And then I moved around a bit. Okay, I've done a postdoc in the US and a couple of years in Japan. So I had my fair share of different culture, different languages. I got exposed to different things. But because I'm from a chemical engineering background, I think I'm slightly different from all the other panelists. But sort of epitomize my perception of my life. If I got to write a memoir, I think the title would be Outsider. Okay, I've been outside in China, I've been outside in Australia. I mean, but the whole experience in Australia wasn't, I've been called names, to be honest. But it was overall very positive. All my colleagues, my mentors, my teachers, my peers, were all being, at least in the academic environment, all being very friendly and very supportive. I think that's sort of contributed my, who I am now professionally and personally. Identity-wise, well, I would say I will always be Chinese. I mean, because I did spend my formative years in China, but Australia always had a special place in my heart because I spent almost like half my life there. All right, so I can't promise I can contribute a lot of interesting points, but I keep it short.
Yeah.
That I can promise.
No, thank you. And I think what you said about being an outsider is really interesting. And I guess also with the sort of other panelists to reflect on this, but it's one of those things. I think many of us may have encountered sort of limiting narratives or sort of stereotypes about what it means to be Asian, and whether that's sort of in the UK or in other contexts, whether in sort of Malaysia or Australia. I guess, could you share some of those sort of challenges or maybe positive experiences that you faced and how perhaps you navigated those? I'll leave it open if anyone wants to sort of jump in and start. Yeah?
Probably I can start
Yeah.
with challenging, because I found this quite annoying, because my mother language is Cantonese, but because of political reason, I'm in a pro-China school. I also fluent in Mandarin, but after I moved here, most of the time people just come here and say, "Ni hao," or "Konnichiwa." I'm like, huh? What?
I was actually also so confused.
It's feel like if you are ethnically white people, if I just come to you and say, "Hola, mucho gusto," you will feel offended, right? Because I do understand sometimes people want to share be friendly, but probably you could just ask where I'm from before that. Because even I can speak Mandarin, but I can also be maybe Japanese or Korean, speaking any other Asian language. Asian is not only China. And then it's more fun is one time I go to the club in Swansea. So just always be Asian fetish guys come to me, 100%. The first thing they say is "Are you from China?" No, I'm from Hong Kong. "Oh, that's next to China. I used to go to China. I know how to speak Mandarin." And then there's one time a guy's he's sitting next to me and start show off "Oh, you're from Hong Kong. You're Asian, right? My dad is from Dubai. He own an oil business in Dubai. I'm gonna have a Lamborghini." And I'm I didn't say that, but I'm "Stop watching Crazy Rich Asian." No. And then the next thing I say, "Oh yeah, that's good for you." And then she "Oh my God, you speak English." Why do you talk to me 3 minutes if you think I don't speak English? This is weird, but at the same time I feel silly dude in Swansea harassing girls. It's happened all the time just because I looked different, so I'm more easy to be a target. So I think it's actually in some sense helps me to locate what issue we had in Swansea. So it helps me better to know what else I can work better on. That's why I decided to be a women's officer, because I know there's something I can work on. I can represent my community, not just Hong Konger, but also all the students in Swansea Uni, because I'm part of Swansea Uni. So these stories are funny and bother me a lot, but it also helps me to address what issues in Swansea and what else I can do better to create a better life for everyone.
I'd like to echo what you say, but also in addition that there's the assumption that, British Asians, it's a monolith. But actually all our experiences are very diverse and each one of us are very unique. So instead of just assuming and painting us with the same brush, try and get to know us, try and understand and find out where we come from. I'm apparently Pakistani one day, some days I'm an Indian, some days I'm Sudanese, and then when they hear my name, "Oh, are you from Scotland?" Because my surname is Aberdeen. So there's all these assumptions. And then they'll ask me, "Do you spell it the same as the place as Aberdeen?" I'm like, "No, it's completely different." So there's all these assumptions that take place naturally based on either what you look like or what you sound like. And I was saying to you both earlier, when I'm in London, I'm more conscious about my accent because my siblings have lost their Welsh accent. But when I'm in Swansea and I'm speaking to some of my friends, my Welsh accent does come out a lot stronger. And so they say, "Oh," and then those that don't know me, they say, "Oh, you don't have a typical Asian accent." What is the typical Asian accent? So you get those kind of questions, and I think these are where we need to reclaim our own narrative. We really need to make our own mark. We need to put our names, our places, our country on that map, because we are contributing to the society equally as anybody else. It's just that the leaders don't look like us, so the leaders that don't look like us get themselves on the map first before us. And I think we need to lead that way. And that's my bandwagon, that's my flag I'll be waving.
Definitely, because yeah, I agree. I think it might especially be an issue with, I would say specifically the Asian community. I would say because I feel like we are all quite, I don't know how to say shy, but like quite willing to just keep our head down. Like this is what our parents tell us anyway. Like, oh, don't do anything like super flashy. Just go to school. Don't do anything weird. Just go. Just get your education. Get out of there. And then, but then that creates that type of environment of which, oh, this bad thing happened to me. I'm not going to talk about it. Like, this is not worth talking about because I'll just shut up and I'll go. But that in itself is the issue of when you have narratives like. As we've been talking about, all the negative and positive ones, they're all like, they might not be representative of you, and you have to kind of get your own story out there, and you have to, I'm sorry to say it, don't keep your head down. You're gonna have to tell people about that. You have to tell people that no, this is not just like there are more layers to the monolith that people like to slap onto us, and even then, yeah, I agree, because Asia is such a big country, not a country, continent, like it's an area. Like I mean, like sorry, didn't read a geography book in a while. But yeah, and even then, like it's very difficult to kind of like even try to accurately encapsulate it, because even this panel, I would admit, I don't think necessarily is representative of every single area of Asia, and I really wish that it could have been, because it's so important to have that, but it's so big, and we have all these different experiences, and the only thing that I can hope is that like people will see, oh, this person's coming out to talk about this sounds like my experience, but not quite the same. I'm gonna come out here and also get to put my hat in the ring, and I'm gonna tell people about that, and I think that's just super important that we do.
I'm going to speak on a campus one. When I landed to this campus on 2007 accidentally, I was a grass eater for over a year. What I mean is, campus catering, which is run by the university, provides only vegetarian or British food. For them, you ask vegetarian, one of the till ladies told me, oh, the pork is vegetarian, you can eat. This is the culture on this campus we had. And they don't know what it means halal. They thought something is really strange words, strange food. The Carmel, who used to be you might know Carmel, who used to be our catering manager, he worked for a five-star hotel in London. He came and said, oh, halal, you have the big food on the table, that's halal. I'm sorry, Carmel, my understanding, your halal is not what's true. Yes, it's always difficult, but you also find the solution to fix the difficult. My first thought was, why it's not food here? When Swansea University knows the Arab students beyond this campus since 1961, how come there is no halal food on here? When Swansea University knows there is a prayer room for the people to be allocated for Christian and Muslim everything, why there is no halal food? It just basic thing doesn't go into the colleague. It's not their ignorance, it's a basic problem we had on a campus was, everybody do the job, but nobody wants to raise a voice. Exactly, put a head, just keep carry on. So my first hit was, went to the student union, I asked, because I come from the civil servant background, I know what to do. I asked the student union, what is the way of writing motion? They're all looking at them. Again, student union is completely white. Guys, you all joined after me. Before that, I was the only one staff among the 33 people and a colored man walking around the corridor in the back of the student union Nelson Mandela building. Building is Nelson Mandela building. Sadly, insidely, I am the only one color of person there. So we wrote a motion to make the university to change the contract, and you all seeing something on your table. Do you all know what is that? Anybody tell me what is that on your table?
It's a TV remote.
Huh?
TV remote.
TV remote, well done. Okay, that used to be policy making button. When you have a motion passed here, any student, staff come inside, there's a button 1, 2, 3, 4, yes or no, it's from my budget. I spent £180, IT rejected my budget. I bought this button because anonymously you have to vote. So I brought all the Saudi students, all the students on this room, asked them to pass the motion. motion was anonymously passed. That included my sponsor label student, everybody voted. Went back to the Vice Chancellor, told only one thing. Either you provide us halal food, or probably I write to all the attaché, the student will leave the university. You need to see, 2 weeks time, our contract has changed. Sponsor University, all the chicken provided in this campus was halal. We were the first institution in Wales provide halal food for the campus, which I'm proud. Until now, our contract is very clear when we float to the contract. Sponsor University chicken has to be provided halal, and sadly, the contractor currently who is have, which where I've been in an argument with them for the long time, which I don't think it's going to end, is they can't able to provide. So the narrative on this campus is, if there is no space, get up, get into the room, do it. Don't wait for somebody to come and do it. You can do it. That's it. So students have a fantastic.
I just pick up from a lot of what you've said. Although being Asian in the UK, the experience is very different. In terms of narrative and so-called reclaim narrative, it seems to me at the basic level is to do with language. I'm just speaking from the perspective of a non-native speaker. It's something I only just figured out in the last couple of years. That is to give up speaking so-called perfect English. Because I started learning English from age 13 in a Chinese middle school. And at the time, everybody was gearing towards speaking like Tony Blair. Because that was the leading UK government figure. And later on, it was about whether you're aiming for a Cambridge, Oxford accent, or you're aiming for an American accent. Like at the time, the generation of Chinese students were aiming for either the pure British accent or the pure American accent. And I was also quite nervous when I was studying as PhD student, speaking in conferences, and even later on speaking as lecturer in the room. I was nervous about making grammar and spelling mistakes. I still do today. I make a lot of grammar mistakes when I speak. And only in last year, 2 years ago, I realized that, hang on a minute, I'm speaking to you using my additional language, whereas you are speaking your mother tongue. That's unfair. And you should be more tolerant towards me rather than me working my ass off to speak perfect British English. So I put myself in a much more comfortable position. What I realized is I became more confident when I speak, or so-called challenge the narratives in the public discourse. Because I noticed, as a lot of, say, East Asian students sitting in the classroom, as I was an international student once sitting in a British university's classroom, I was very shy to speak in the classroom because I was afraid of making mistakes. I was afraid that halfway through my speech, I would forget the vocabulary I want to use, or my accent suddenly turn into some horrible accent. I think a key word for our student and myself to think about is confidence, is to not being afraid of making grammar mistakes when you speak English in a classroom, or when you challenge anybody who is a native speaker in the UK. Accent is beautiful. Everybody who's non-native speaker brings your Asian accent, your Mediterranean accent. French accent supposed to be romantic. Why is Chinese accent supposed to be stupid? So I think only recently I come to terms with embracing my Chinese accent, embracing the spelling mistakes I sometimes make when I talk. So then I think that's a first step for a lot of non-native speakers to program into the confidence of challenging the narratives and the unfair treatment sometimes they come across in the institution. So I just want to share that.
Well, I do have to say I share a lot of what the panelists have just said, especially on the surface level, right? The racism, the thing that you take offense. But I would like to be a little bit advocate. I think that the civil rights movement and the equality movement has come a long way, right? Since the 50s and 60s. The reason whether we have this space, that is understanding, that is sort of, accommodating, then that is a prime example of that. I think the focus has been shifted from tolerance, which one movement started, to celebration. Right? And since we raised the bar, hence I sort of sense the undercurrent of frustration sometimes in the media and also among the people when we're talking about equality and diversity. That is why we always have to strive to have a voice. When I first heard about reclaiming narrative, I was a little bit perplexed, because reclaiming, so since when that we was at the center of the narrative. And that now I think after the panelists talk about it, I think that is not that the Asian culture, the heritage was at the center. It was just that was dominated by a mainstream or societal norm or the mainstream point of view. And now we try to change that. Yeah? And we come a long way. Let's not underestimate the achievement that we achieved as a society, especially in the Western society. But there's still a lot more that we can do. Hence, we talk about it. I think the end point, the end game is, I'm not sure about all of you feel it this way, but some of us may feel like when we're organizing this event, this is the first few I've been to. When we organize this kind of event, we feel like it's a bit performative, right? Right? Some people make challenges, oh, it's a bit performative. I think the end goal, the end game would be, when we get to the point, we don't need to organize this point. We'll perfectly normalize it, and that's when we know where we made it.
Yeah.
Right? So we will strive towards that goal.
Great.
Yeah. That's
Thank you
2
very much.
cents.
No, I think that's a great point, and I think just to sort of echo sort of what a lot of the panelists have said as well, I think a lot of you were raising this idea of needing to sort of push your voices forward, and this was something also covered in the podcast yesterday. But I think it's really important in what you were saying about the challenges of having the halal chicken. It's sometimes what seems to be things that seem quite small, but actually are massive sort of achievements that actually we have seen in these spaces, and we have seen that actually quite a big move forward. And the fact that we even have sort of a venue, that we actually have a space where we can actually come and talk about this, it already shows that we're moving forward on a lot of these. And I guess this actually ties very neatly, thank you, into our next question, which is, I guess we have come some way, but of course there's a lot more to do. And what more do you think can be done to sort of genuinely support and celebrate the contributions of whether it's Asian students or staff or community members? What more can we do?
I think the barriers on the campus, I'm going to speak about the Swansea campus, that's my home. I need to speak more about my campus than speaking outside, because there are hundreds of people there to manage that one. It's not my job to how bad to do. Our campus is very vibrant. It's a fabric of vibrant on our campus. That's a strong word to use. Saying that, it took us to 12 years to get a female pro-vice chancellor on the list. Then Swansea University, from University of Wales, Swansea, from 2007, we moved to Swansea University. I was in a transition board. I'm part of the transition board as a university general secretary. I'm part of that board. In that room, I was one colored person, and there was no woman in that room. And we were making a university, a foundation, but there is no woman in that room. On that day, if something has been clicked on my head, I went straight away to wrote an email to the Vice Chancellor, previous Vice Chancellor. I still remember the Vice Chancellor's PA name, Miss James. She emailed me within 3 minutes saying, oh, I would like you to meet the HR Director, David Williams, and the head of the law, Professor Ewan Davies. And I said, why? And I said, they think your idea is good, they should be speaking. So straight away that afternoon I went and met. I said, I come from the Foreign Office. I do know Equality Act is going to come in 2010. Could we not establish an equality department on the campus? They said, what is going to achieve? It will achieve. First thing, you will have a woman sitting on your top of in Abbey Block who will tell what is right and wrong. Secondly, we are talking about the equality. When you don't have your own peer of women be sitting in the group, how are you speaking about equality? Forget about the Black, Asian, ethnic minority people. You can't match those things, and how are you going to do? And you got among the 9 directors of PSMT, only 1 woman was sitting as a PSMT. So it was a really difficult conversation. It was heated conversation as well. So we established our first equality department back in 29, even before any of the university had the equality department. And we had only 1 staff recruited on FT3, which is 1.5 days out of 5 days working. But I'm pleased, there is a department which established back in days. We are the pioneer department, equality department. Shah's from that same department. We have 6 colleagues working there. And when I stand up and say, well, that changed, 10 years later, my 70% of senior leadership are women. And we have the first woman who has been a Register and Chief Operating Officer of 103 years of history. This doesn't happen, but you need to look into. Look at the big picture. Yes, you're not going to, it's not going to benefit anybody. Tomorrow I leave the university, it's not going to, but the equality department is there to support you. Those are the things we come. I always tell to my children or to my friends when I speak, and particularly my labor club, which I speak, always say like, before you criticize anybody, always go with the solution. If there is no solution, there is no point criticizing. Criticism can be done by anybody everywhere. There's hundreds and thousands of people outside to criticize, but there are only 1 or 2 people who will go with the solution. So you always go with the solution, criticize and give the solution in the hand. Then you see your narrative is completely changed and your reflection is changed. And they will realize, okay, they are right. What happens on, everybody says a reflection, oh, Asians, they are late, they never been in time, they come with a different color, they come with a different perfume, they eat in the hand, they do this one. All these are perception, nobody has waited. What we need to do is, do it in the other way. Show them this is not right. And I used to tell many times when sitting in a table to the colleagues who said, sorry, your spoon has to be on that side. That means they are not going to serve your food. The moment they change the food, our catering department will serve the food. Because they think they are doing right, but not. The education we are here is just not to educate ourselves, we have to educate others as well. That's the easiest way we can make cohesion and a strong fabric community.
Yeah. I do really agree with him. Like, I feel like in general, sometimes there is a lot of like misunderstanding to my self-identity in UK. But it is because in general, Asian is a really brief new concept for Western people. Because back to the time, they will only understand maximally China or Korea. But we actually have more country. So as a migrant myself to Wales, I do feel like I have the responsibility to keep telling my story, because sometimes last year I think there's far right protests against the migrant. I know everyone angry, but in some way I always said that I don't really hate them, because I think it's about misunderstanding. It's because as a migrant myself, I didn't do my responsibility enough to tell the story, because Asian is always a group of people who's struggling. I have to be honest, Asian is not that good as everyone imagine. We have a lot of things should improve on. We should be more open-minded. As a female, I don't feel there is enough room for me to speak up for myself. It's really judgmental, even in Hong Kong, a well-developed country. So after moving to Swansea, I feel like there's a lot of Asian here. We are always struggling. I know a Kurdish man who working in a grocery shop. He escaped to Swansea from the war. I know a Arab girl. She escaped to Swansea because she doesn't have the body autonomy in Europe. It's illegal. She could die if she doesn't cover her hair. So there's always girls in Taiwan. They stand up for their gender rights, speaking up against gender violence. So I believe that every migrant, every Asian in Swansea, they have their own story. in daily life, we got a lot of things we have to adapt to, like the weather, the food, like the halal, like these are the cultural differences. So this is why like understanding and respect is really important. We have to learn to understand other cultural background. We have to learn to respect everyone have a different lifestyle rather than just the like same page. And as a minority myself, we have to be brave, keep telling our story, let others understand what we need. So like, probably starting from today, just ask any Asian you know, ask them, why do you here? Is there anything you can't get used to in UK? Then you know what we can offer a help. Even we are minority, we could also help other minority.
Definitely. I think like completely agree. You know, there are stereotypes and prejudices we hear day in, day out, especially because we belong to the minority. But the question is, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to just sit there and listen, or are we going to step up and challenge those thoughts and those practices? And I think we need to break those stereotypes by being those examples ourselves. Where we don't see people or areas where we are not represented, we need to be those representation. Recently, I was appointed the Deputy Lieutenant for West Glamorgan. I'm the first Muslim, Welsh, Asian to be appointed in this post, and I hope that I won't be the last, because I want people to see that that's paved a way for us, and I hope that more will have the confidence to come in. So we really have to be those examples for others to feel that, okay, if Shaz can be there, there's an opportunity for me. What can I do? Can I go and speak to Shaz? Can I go and speak to Mahbooba? Can I come and speak to the panel members here? What can I do to improve my skills, to get in there, you know, or even if it's volunteering, we need to really be open-minded. Because what I find our communities, we're so insular, we're safe in our own environment, we're too scared to step out of that area, and we need to take that step. We need to challenge ourselves to be those examples for others and to mark that place for all the other people to follow through. To be those leaders, you have to be amongst those leaders.
I just want to add on an institution level, because there is only so much the individual can do, and especially with everyone recognizing the importance of race inclusion and also just in general equality. I think that institutions cannot underestimate what they might perceive as small things mean to people, like having halal chicken, having like a mosque on campus, having the multi-faith room be not just only Christian, but also like inclusive of other like religions. Like again, like take a look at it. Nidhi has been trying to like get that done, and yeah, and honestly, like it's when we have like all these like small things that are happening, it doesn't seem that much. I can tell you right now, like this year, I didn't notice any Chinese New Year celebrations in the university. I might have missed the invite or something. I don't know. I'm not connected to the right people. But I noticed it. It was something that actually really struck a chord with me because they've always had it every year. And I think the Chinese Scholar Association Society isn't very active. And I think the only people that did have something of that sort was literally just MASU, which is the Malaysian Student Society. Shout out to them. And yeah, but even then, I don't really feel like I can go because I don't feel very like I don't feel that part like as connected to them as they would feel with each other. But I remember the first time I attended that Chinese New Year celebration, I think in my first year, I just randomly wandered in. I have no idea, like that was like a Chinese New Year thing. I was like, oh, something to eat, ooh, let's go. And I was really happy about that. And I saw it and I felt for once that there was something that people saw me. People saw people like me and they were like, yes, we're going to allocate this thing in the budget. We're going to make it big for people and we're going to tell them that, yeah, we do care. We know it's Chinese New Year, so have some free meals. And I think it's important because people will look at that and say, oh, yeah, like, oh, they remembered. Oh, that's great. Having representation in leadership roles in SU, me seeing like Melody run for like women's officer, I was so happy because for so long, I haven't seen like that many Asian people, and honestly, just in general, people of color, like running for the leadership roles in the university. And when I see lecturers of like different like ethnicities, and I'll be straight up with you. The psychology department is not very diverse. So when I see like other departments with professors from like all over the world, I'm so happy because I didn't have that. And I know that for someone, for a first year international student, they came into the university, they were really worried, they were struggling and anxious about like how their first day is going to go. They see a person like them and they need to think to themselves, yes, okay, there's someone there like me. It's going to be okay because they're here and I'm here and we're here together. And I think that's what we really need. When institutions recognize that there is the need for change, act upon it, actively listen to people, seek out their opinions. We only recently just established our anti-racism course, which was tough work. You would think that we wouldn't need this type of course. You would think that that was basic, but no, really not. And that is one of like, well, I wouldn't say it's a little thing, but it might be a little thing for some people. Having that as a basis for people, to educate people, I think that is just important. And I think that there is more that can be done and institutions must listen.
I just want to say I really admire my colleagues here for what they've done to challenge the system. I think each of us play a different role in the whole reclaim narrative agenda. Some people play the warrior role, who would put themselves in front. Some people sort of more play a philosopher's role, to criticize, to think about, to mull it through. Some people perhaps more of a observer's role. And I haven't figured out my role in it because I have to admit that I challenging, directly confronting someone is not my immediate nature. I think everybody has a comfort zone that you might be willing or not willing to step out to challenge a situation where you identify as a racist encounter. But I think what we, at least from myself, could do is, if you have been a observer's role, maybe take one step further to be a more active observer's role. If you were a sort of more passive warrior's role, maybe take a tiny step further. So I do think it's these tiny steps that eventually going to make a bigger impact in the end.
Well,
Pressure's on you.
well, the pressure's always the one speaking last. I think to stand up, to be counted, is always a good starting point. Because only when you start speaking up, when you challenge the current narrative, when certain behavior that considered to be offensive or racist can be stopped. Right? So only when you challenge the social norm, will otherwise be considered to be socially acceptable. But on the other hand, sometimes I think the understanding comes in both ways, so it goes in both directions. Like what I said before, that I share a lot of the sentiment that the panelists talked about before. But sometimes, I wouldn't say all the time, but sometimes maybe people giving those seemingly a throwaway lines, or throwaway remarks that was not rooted from, I would say, a bad intention or a malicious place in the heart. So that calls for understanding both ways. Right? So I think the conversation is very important, albeit to speak up first is also important. Okay? So I think that I want to stress that the two-way conversation is, because we reached this point that we can create a comfortable space that, like the event of today, that we openly talk about it. Right? So we have these facilities, we have these tools that can help us to reach that point. It's just to be more encouraging. Yeah? And also on the other point, so that was on the what we can do to address the potential problem with the current narrative, how to reclaim it using the trendy word. Another point I want to touch on that's slightly a little bit different from this is, I think you can understand the issue from a different angle. On one angle is we all have our individualness. We all being individualistic, right? So we have our own complex history and experience, and attached to that is the complex emotions. But sometimes we feel like we've been tar by the same brush. Just because you're Chinese, it must be, no fun, or you don't know how to be fun. That is an issue, but try to present yourself as an individual. I think it's more important than, being combative, saying I'm fighting for all the Chinese people. Okay, this is not to take away from what we are doing here. We're advocating for Asian culture. The country of your heritage. But in the meantime, try to accentuate more on yourself if you can. Okay, I am of Chinese heritage, but I'm much more than that. Okay, I can provide, humor. I can provide fun if I want to. So it's not just because my skin, because my race, that you get to label me into a certain category. You got to tick the box. I think that was the second point I'd like to add.
No, thank you. I think I'll quickly say something, and then I might give some time just for questions, because I'm aware of the time and I don't want to run too much over time. But I think a couple of things that were touched on. I think, firstly, what you were saying about that idea of, both of you actually, not everyone has to fight this kind of, and everyone has a different role. And I think that's also very important, that again, it's about sort of not grouping everyone in sort of one category. But I also think what a number of you raised about the need for institutions, and I think even the point that you raised about the Chinese New Year celebrations, and I know it's somehow, in some ways a little bit in jest in terms of, yes, we want free food, but it's actually more than that. It's about, that tells you that you belong, that you have a place here, that just because there is a budget cut, that isn't the thing that's cut. It's one of those things. It's not just something tokenistic that, okay, when everything's going fine, we have these events, and then, okay, now we don't have the money, so, we don't need these events because they don't matter anymore. So if they matter, they matter, and if they don't, they don't. So I think that was a really good point. But what I'll do is I'll throw it open now to the audience, if there's any questions for any of our panelists.
So a question for everyone, not that everyone is obliged to answer this. If you could go back to time and speak to your younger self about the challenges and the adversity you've gone through, what is something that you would tell your younger self to give them like words of praise and let them know that things will get better? What's something that you would tell your younger self?
I'd probably say, don't worry about your accent, your English fine.
I probably would tell myself, you are choosing a pathway that will never be easy, so don't overwhelm, because your worry is a reality. Yeah. You're gonna be struggle mostly your whole life, because you choose to put your value in some place that you might not achieve it in reality. So this is your choice. So you have to take the consequence. The consequence is you will struggle. You might not able to go back to your home country. You feel lonely because you think no one understands you, and you will be disappointed because you think you put a lot of effort, but the reality is reality. Nothing changed. It seems like you are the only one who keep changing, keep suffering. But as long as this is something you truly believe in, you think it is something worth for you to give up so many things to keep fighting on, then it's worth it. So be strong, and emotion is emotion. You are, at the end, you are human. Give yourself some time to process all the sadness and disappointed.
I think for me, to be happy in my own skin color. I think growing up, not just within the white community, but within my own community, within my own family network, I happen to be the darker skin tone child amongst my group. And I was always reminded that. Every now and then there'd be a joke, family auntie would come in or uncle, oh, are you sure this one's your child? She looks very different from you. Being one of 7, we're all different shades. And so somebody said, go apply some white powder on you. You know, I don't know why there was that need of having that white skin tone or that fairer skin tone. But had I known where I would be today, I would have enjoyed my life as a child and not always wanting to be a lot fairer than what I was. So I think if I could have enjoyed or changed or understood or believed that skin color doesn't matter, it's who you are and what you will become in life that matters.
For me, one thing if I be regretted which I have not taken, it took a long time to is allyship. If I know who is my allyship, I would know who I would have teach a lot in this campus. Sadly, my allyship came only when I became a trade union chair on this campus. Then I realized what I'm doing is right. And I always tell myself, am I going in the right direction? Because you never get a feedback when you become a chair. Either you get criticism, rather than saying 100 job has gone to campus, 400 job is on the van, and if I go outside now, everybody will stop and talking to me, my work is on restructure, what's going on, I might got a job, blah, blah, blah. But having that allyship is very important, regardless where you are. In the family, you should have one sibling who speaks to you. Outside the family, you have somebody outside who can listen to you. In the community, somebody who speaks to you. That allyship will stay with you. It will help you to take out. At the end of the day, we are all human beings. As a human, we have nature of talking to each other. You need that one allyship always with you. If you're there, nobody can stop you to reach where you are, who you are. That's belonging.
I would tell young me that they were right. It does take some time, and eventually you will get there. So don't. Sorry, dude. Like, they're right. I can't say anything about that.
Listen to your elders.
Yeah. I think they were right after all. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say try to fit in is necessary, but not at the point that you sacrifice who you are. Okay, and don't assume life is easy. Life is always filled with struggle. Don't take things for granted. You're never going to have an easy life. There's just anything that worth something, anything that has value, you have to fight for it, right? So don't take things for granted. Take accountability, because you may think you have a harder life in the beginning, but you start to reap that rewards when you approach, let's say 40s, which is where I am now. Yeah. So
That's great.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
May I ask you, just one word, what is Asian heritage for you?
Pride.
That's perfect.
I think roots. My roots.
Roots.
Okay.
Community.
Food.
I would say diversity.
Diversity.
It's quite diverse region.
Courage.
Correct.
That's perfect. And I think next maybe symposium or meeting maybe start with these words because they describe what is Asian heritage.
Heritage.
Yeah.
For me, it's mutual respect, to be honest.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Teresa?
I think my question would be, how do we meaningfully engage students in all of the race quality work that we're doing? Because sometimes it always happens in silos. I mean, like you said today, we've got this event going on, but there's also 5 million other events going on as well. So how do we, I mean, from what Mahabub said, he made a lot of changes when he was in student union, and I feel like students have so much power to make change that you don't really get as staff. So how do we encourage students to get involved and
Let me start with a joke. If you have to change the student to engage, go back to the central government, tell them to take the fees, 9,000 to make it 1,200, you will have all the students come and help you. Some of you in this room will agree with me, I never paid fees. It's the state paid us, state looked after us, and our engagement to the state give back was too heavily. And I'm sure some of the lecturers will agree with me. That's a joke, okay? Because I can't go and tell the Prime Minister to change, which is impossible. Okay? On to the other side, why students are not engaging? It's a two-way. It's education entitlement, which is giving a gap because you are coming to the institution with the pressure. So many pressure. You are landing in the world where one job is in competition for 10 people. When I landed in the world, there was no competition at all. I give you an example. In Swansea University, I never went for any job interview. I created every job and I went to the job. When I left the job, there will be 10 to 8 people will be working in the department. So I never went for any job interview. I never applied for application. Right? This is the talent comes to you. You need to be think out of box. We are very traditional. Okay, I get grade 6 job. I'm a clerical assistant. I'm not happy. House is very close. I'll go back in and out. But just take that risk. How we are going to do. But that attitude among our students is very less nowadays because they do know if I do computer science, Google will pick up me, or maybe Elon Musk might pick up me. I'll be the brand top one. Sadly, the campus has gone too broader section since 2016 because one campus on the Bay campus completely dead, silent zone, which Dylan Thomas mentioned. That's the place there. Sadly, he mentioned on this side, which is not this side. On our campus, this campus is big campus, community-based campus. The easiest way is talk to. Teresa, you and me run the election here. We know how to talk to people. You talk to them. Talking is very important. Sadly, we came from a culture of sending an email. Everybody sends an email and newsletter. Nobody reads. Trust me, nobody reads. But talking to the one by one, and I'm sure most of the people in this room, 30% would have the text message, 20% personal phone call, and 10% by individual. Maybe 3 or 4 who read the email think, okay, let me go, I got some time. So communication is very important, which go back to us, engaging the students by word of mouth is very important. When I was a student, I used to go to the lecture room, I say, excuse me lecturer, would you be happy if I have a word? They looked at you, say, okay, by the way, guys, there is an event happening in a Fulton House, please do join. In the library, do you all know there is a microphone system works in library? I go and I tell the security, I need the microphone, press the button. Ladies and gentlemen, there is an event happening in Groove Theatre, could you all join? And you will see half of the students will be walking there and coming there. So sadly that communication we lost here. And same with the colleagues, staff colleagues. Talking is very important. I know we have a women's officer here, and we got a few of the elected officers. You need to talk to the people. And I mentioned this initially, this button. You can see all this one. When we run the AGM, we don't have space in this room. This is the biggest lecture hall we have in this campus. We don't have a space. People used to sit on the steps. That's change. So to bring the change, we need to communicate very effectively with the students. And staff need to communicate with the student, and student union officers communicate with the students as well. That's my take.
I think we need to stop doing lip service, and be more realistic and avoid the tokenistic approach. We recently submitted the Race Equality Charter application, and Teresa's team and my team, we worked on it day in, day out. I got to be honest, the university has come a lot further than what it did before. I mean, when we were I'm not from this university, so in the 2 years I got to learn a lot about what the university's done over the period. And hats off to them, they're a lot more advanced than the other Welsh universities that I've had meetings with. I mean, they're looking at policies, they're looking at embedding, they're looking at, we've had examples about the catering pathways being changed and modified based on their needs. I mean, there's 9.2% ethnic minority staff currently at the university who belong to an ethnic minority group, or who identify themselves that they belong to an ethnic minority group. And we've looked at our recruitment policy, whereas before it was like an application process. We've now anonymized it to the best we can. We're looking at our recruitment pathways, we're looking at our promotional pathways. Our senior leadership at the moment is all white. apart from our council. Our senior leaderships are all white. But what we're trying to do is looking at how we can change the makeup. Our gender balance has done significantly well. We've done our Athena Swan application and the representation is very good there. Now we're looking towards the work around race. So I feel that the university is doing exceptionally well, or trying in the current tough climate that it faces with budget cuts, to do the best it can. But we as staff and students, we also have the responsibility to help the university do their bit as well. So I do echo that communication is essential and paramount. Where we see good practice, we need to be more vocal about it. We can't just hold it to ourselves. The more we talk about it, the more people would understand. I mean, like you say, the Chinese New Year wasn't celebrated. I think going forward, a lot of these things we won't see happening because of these huge budget cuts. But unless we go and say, well, actually, no, this is what we want, this is what's going to echo on our belonging element. The university appointed its very first DPVC EDI-B. The B part is the belonging part, equality, diversity, inclusivity, and belonging. The university did it the first time this year. Unfortunately, our EDIB lead is leaving the university, but I think they're in the process or have appointed somebody new. And I'm very hopeful that the work will continue. But the message from me is definitely is that we have to go and inform the people in charge, the decision makers, that we want to see more of this, because we want to have that sense of belonging. The more we communicate, the more they will understand, the more representation we'll see. If we don't vocalize it, we won't see the representation.
I think with my experience working in Rizak, and honestly, like thinking back to when I first joined, I remember applying and writing that short little bio, like, why should you guys choose me? I was very straight up. I don't think I'm actually that good at like any of these issues. I just got here. I have no idea. And I thought to myself, I can only offer you my own experience. And that experience probably will not apply to anyone else because, you know, it's just one person in this huge campus. But with the work that I've been doing with everyone, I think it's important for students to realize that they have more power than they realize as a person. I was in first year, I was very scared. I didn't think that I could do any real change, but honestly, in the past few years, I didn't realize how much progress that we've managed to make, and I'm honestly really proud of that. And that comes from students realizing that you have a voice, and you can take part in these things that will help, like, developing a better campus, a better student experience for everyone else. You might not be here to see it, but in the end, people benefit from it. And I think it's realizing that that's a continuous process, and that people do have to get their hands dirty for that, sadly, and you have to get in there. If you think you can't do it, you can. Just try it.
I think every conclusion is like a four step. The first step is understanding, just like you said, like too many emails, students don't want to read it, then that's the problem. And then second one is communication, because like understand is like some kind of assumption, you're guessing like why do they don't want to engage in campus. So the next step is communication. Ask them, why don't you want to be? And then the third step is adjust your plan for all the activity. So you understand why don't they want to join the activity, so you can adjust in your promotion plan. Probably they don't want the email, so I put more promotion material in social media. And then the last step, reach out. Because like even you put on like promotion plan, word of mouth is the most efficient way for promoting. So don't afraid to reach out student. Like, and last thing is like, it's from my friend Mike. He told me yesterday, don't afraid to piss off people. Yeah, it's like, you know, during the election, there is a lot of students are really rude. They will just say, don't stop me for going to lecture. I'm not interested in voting. But like most of the candidates, they just leave it. But I'm not. I would say, what did you just say? Why do you don't want to vote? Why? I keep chasing that. I would say, okay, can you give me a reason why don't you want to vote? Because it's democracy, I think it's important. Can you tell me why don't you want to use your right? Yeah, they might find me annoying, but then they would they said, oh, I'm not interested. I don't think I got any benefit from student union, or I don't think the student union is representative. Then I know why they why don't they like the student union? So in my next upcoming year, I can think about how to communicate with other officers to adjust in this issue. But at the same time, I have a chance to share my opinion. I tell them that's your right, that's a democracy. Even you think you don't get a benefit, I see you get off from the bus, that's welfare. Then they will think about it, because sometimes they're not educated enough. Because I think like UK is a country with pleased education. We like to please students. We like to give them a best environment, but sometimes education is tough. I guess like you guys will agree. Since we grow up in Asia, it's tough, but sometimes it helps us grow a lot. Like that conversation between me and that student might not be perfect, might not be comfortable. Even I struggle a lot. Like you can ask Mike. Like he heard me complain all the day. I would just go to my, they're so rude. Like, but at the end, I got something from the student, and they got something from me. They will start think about it. They might not just like, ding, I know what to say, but they will think like maybe like before they go to bed, they will start process. They start like thinking, like process into their own ideology. So, like that's like how communication works, and that's how we can put all the students together.
Budget allocation is always based on demand. So where we can demonstrate demand, there will be budget allocation. So if we feel that there needs to be a demand in the belonging agenda, and if we are informing our senior officers, then the budget allocation will be there. It's like police reporting. If you don't report something, the police think everything's hunky-dory, everything's fine. But then you find that there's crime in that area. Because of suspicion, experience, they don't want to report, or bad experience with the police, they don't want to report. So where the demand is, and if we can improve the communication flow, then people will feel confident. It's like what my panelist here said, that having the confidence. If you have confidence in the senior officers, in the colleagues that you're working with, in the staff team, student team that you're working with, you'll have the confidence to share your thoughts. From your thoughts, then that will become evidence. From your evidence, then when you're doing your budget allocation, you can allocate to the priority areas. So then we will see those things that we like to see more frequently.
Yeah, I would like to echo some of the things, some of the points that other panelists brought up. I think communication has been a recurring theme in the conversation we just had. It's definitely the key word. It's definitely something we need to work on. I think this ties into the attendance issue that we have. I think across
the university.
Yeah, across not just this campus, the Bay campus, right? So we don't even have enough student turning up. So you have to understand the student turning up not just to get a chance to talk to lecturers, you also get to, networking with your colleagues, with your peers, right? So you get to learn a lot of things happening around the, that's definitely the area where it's lacking, where to improve the communication. And I think Singleton campus definitely done a lot better than Bay campus, which definitely agree is a dead zone, a dead silence all the time, which I'm sort of advocating for the panel and the group here. If you can bring the event to Bay campus, that will be next time. I mean, that will be a lot better, because our engineering people are notoriously known to be not talking passionately and communicate effectively, talk about our feelings, right? So we need an event like this to bring people together, not just the staff and also the students. So that's the first point I would like to echo. The second point I would slightly add to the conversation that we just had is, I think the issue, at least some of the issue that we have with the student not engaging, that was the original question, right? May have something to do with the social media, right? So I noticed that, especially in engineering discipline, the student would more likely talk to each other, connect with each other on social media rather than come in person. So they feel like they're more comfortable in that space, which, to give at least the chemical engineering department the credit, we created a TikTok account, and then we encouraged the staff to do like short videos and dance around in the city way, which I participate a little bit, to engage students to talk about the issue they would like to talk about, they like to share. So that is definitely a space need more attention, in my opinion. Whether or not try to understand why students, rather than go to social media, talk to each other, then come into in person. Is that like socially awkwardness, or we need to understand more on that. That in my opinion, will definitely help with the communication.
I don't have an answer. We need to ask the student who are not here, which is difficult. And just only thing I want to add is perhaps it's something to do with the COVID generation. So after COVID, a lot of activities were online. People attend less. We even have, like you said, we even have problem getting students to attend lecture, not to the lecture they paid for. Not to mention events like this. This is why at the beginning I was sincerely happy to see so many people here, because I wasn't expecting such a great attendance today.
Okay, well, thank you very much. If you can join me in a round of applause for our lovely
Amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you so much to the panelists and also to Dawn for facilitating this session. This was really insightful. I have a couple of notes here, really important stuff. Yeah, we're just gonna go on to the next segment, which is gonna be a quiz that our lovely Jamil here, my co-host, has curated. So if you can bring out your phones, I will just be putting out the. So whilst we put out the links and the QR code on the screen, you can help yourselves to some refreshments over there. We have coffees, we have pizzas, and yeah, we'll just give you maybe 10, 15 minutes to just, grab some refreshments, and then we can get into the Kahoot.
Yeah, so we've got pizza of all options as well, vegetarian, gluten-free, I believe, meat pizzas. We've got pizza for everybody.
I have a question I think is really important.
What's that?
Because they talk about speaking up, communicating, and reporting. But who do we talk to? Because I may notice so many things, but I don't know who to talk to. I don't know who to report to.
These guys, I know that most of them are lecturers. Shaz, she's probably a good person because she works with HR as well. So I think with her, she deals with, I hear people talk a lot to do with like HR, like resources and things like that. So Shaz is a good person to speak to because with the lecturers, you could speak to them as well, but it's like, I think
Will they really take it on?
that's because they haven't got time, you get what I'm saying? Because they got to teach and mark, and you get what I'm saying?
I think it would also help if we have a student rep in every course.
Yeah, you could also bring it up to Melody as well, because she's going to be welfare officer next year. All the officers, all the full-time officers, they should be welcome to communicate with what you need exactly.
Yeah.
What is it exactly you want to communicate with? Is it
No, just generally speaking. So for
student voice in
instance-
general?
Yeah.
Oh yes, Melody's perhaps a good person.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
Melody's a
will
good
talk
person.
to her.
Plenty of pizza, guys. Don't be shy.
Man. Time went by really quickly today.
Right, mate?
Okay, so I'm just going to take this over 2 seconds.
Absolute legend, man. I wouldn't be able to do any of these technical
It's all right, mate. It's
things.
what we do.
Yeah, too many wires, too many buttons to press.